Welcome to DSEJ Home Classes. Dear students, you might have heard about so many freedom fighters of India. How did they get freedom from India in 1947 after many efforts, after a huge struggle, and what kinds of things or what kind of difficulties, problems they had to undergo during that struggle. Today, we are going to study about a similar thing. In India, you might have heard about Mahatma Gandhi, you might have heard about Subhash Chandra Bose, you might have heard about Bhagat Singh, all freedom fighters, and many others as well, who fought for their nation, who fought for their country. It is this time, it is all about uh, Nelson Mandela. You might have heard the name Nelson Mandela from South Africa. He has who fought for his nation, who was an anti-apartheid, who was an anti-racist activist, and who fought for his nation to get his nation free from the white supremacy. He has written an autobiography. Okay, today which the chapter we are going to study, it is the fourth chapter of class 10th, and that is Long Walk to Freedom. We are going to study an extract from his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. If you talk about autobiography, autobiography means it is a work which is written about oneself by a writer, and in this chapter we will see we will study about so many things, which we are going to study later on, or in the next part of this lecture. And in this part, in this first part, we will discuss about, it is very important, I find it very important to discuss about Nelson Mandela itself. We must know about him, who he was, what did he do, and we must be acquainted with him a bit, so that it might help us in understanding the whole chapter, the whole text of this Long Walk to Freedom, or extract which is there in the fourth chapter of your English textbook. So his name was Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, and he was born in 1918, July 1918. You can see here, July 1918, in South Africa itself. You can see Nelson was a name given to him when he was in primary school by his teacher, and it was a kind of, it was mandatory at that time to give them an English name, to give African children English name by the white supremacy, so that it becomes easy for them to call them. So Nelson was given, the name Nelson was given to him by his school teacher. Then Rolihlahla, he was called Rolihlahla, which literally means a troublemaker. You will see that he was a troublemaker for white supremacy. He proved himself to be very successful in that area. We will see. And Mandela, which means Madiba, or he was also called Mandela or Madiba. Madiba is actually, there was in 19th century there lived a clan, a Kabila, namely Tambu clan, and it was, Madiba was actually the name of the Tambu chief, the chief of that clan, and it lived in 19th century in the region Transkei in South Africa. And it was, Madiba literally means father, and it is actually Nelson Mandela, actually he belonged to this clan. He was from this clan itself, and Madiba means father, and he proved himself later on to be the father of nations. So it means he was a born father of nation, you can say. So we would like to discuss a bit about him. He was actually the first black president of South Africa who held his office presidency from 1994 to 1999. Yes, and it was he was born on July 18, 1918 in South Africa, and then he was the first elected president in fully, representative democratic elections, which were held in 1990, which were held in 1994, 10th May 1994. There is, I would like to say, there was a news item from BBC on that day. I would like to read that news item which they published on that day. It reads like this. The heading of the news was Mandela becomes South Africa's first black president. Nelson Mandela has become South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress Party won 252 of the 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Building's amphitheatre in Pretoria today, attended by politicians and dignitaries from more than 140 countries around the world. Never, never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another, said Nelson Mandela in his address. Jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony with blacks, whites and coloureds celebrating together. More than 1 lakh South African men, women and children of all races sang and danced with joy. So it was that news item by BBC on 10th May 1994 when he had an oath, and it was this, and then we will see. So he was the first elected president in fully representative democratic elections in 1994, and African National Congress. It was his party, African National Congress, which was banned earlier, and then it was the ban was lifted. African National Congress won 252 seats out of 400 seats in 1994, and with this he became president of South Africa. And he was actually anti-apartheid activist. He was anti-apartheid activist. It is very important to know what is apartheid. He was anti-apartheid activities. He fought against it. He was anti-racist. Actually, apartheid means it is a political system that separates people according to their race, caste, and color. It is actually, apartheid means the discrimination on the basis of race, caste, or color. People were kept apart. White people and black people, they were kept apart there, and it was the discrimination was there was a clear discrimination. Government jobs were given to white people only. The high posts or the status was given to white people only, and they were not allowed to mix with black ones, were not allowed to mix with white ones, and they were kept at a distance. Black people were kept at a distance, and they were not allowed to be with them. They were not allowed, black people were not allowed to be in the government. And the government official, it was only for the government was only for, or being in the government was only for white people, and black one could not take part in elections, could not take part in the government. He could not be there in the government. So there was this discrimination there. So they were kept apart. Everybody, the black, they were kept apart. White people were kept apart. They were not allowed to be there. So such was a discrimination, and that is apartheid. So he was anti-apartheid activities, for which he was imprisoned in 1962. He was imprisoned in 1962 and released in 1990. He remained in jail. He remained in prison for 27 years, literally 27 years, and he was, he was charged for sabotage at that time and for other crimes, according to the then government of their country, and they found him a kind of threat They found Mandela a kind of threat. That's why they put him behind the bars in 1962, and he was released in 1990. And his moment was actually, it had become such a strong moment that they had to release him. And it was he got more than 100 awards in 40 years, and it is said that he got more than 250 awards from all around the world, and in which you can see the most important Nobel Peace Prize he got in 1993. Nobel Peace Prize, he got it in 1993. And then there was India gave him Bharat Ratna Award in 1990. Yes, and then in 1992 he was given the award of Nishane Pakistan by Pakistan. And in the same year, 1992, he was awarded the Ataturk Peace Award by Turkey. Ataturk Peace Award by Turkey, which he rejected, which he refused at that time, because according to him, there was a kind of discrimination. There were human rights violation in the then Turkey, there in Turkey. That's why he refused. But later on in 1999, he accepted that award by Turkey. And then you can say after his retirement from politics, he started the Nelson Mandela Foundation to combat HIV, AIDS, and poverty in his country. He decided to do that, and he did it from the core of his heart. And then you can see it was his birthday, 18 July. It was proclaimed by United Nations as Nelson Mandela International Day. It was celebrated. It is celebrated 18 July as Nelson Mandela International Day. It was proclaimed by United Nations, and it was said, it was asked by United Nations that on that day, that holiday, must be marked by, everyone should do, 60. Everyone should do a good thing, a good, any good for the people for 67 minutes on that day, on 18 July. So 67 minutes for a day should be spent for anything, any good work there, and which in the 67 minutes, and these were the representative of those 67 years of Mandela's life, which he spent working for a change, working to bring a change in his country, and which he brought in 1993-94. And then he was also called this is his legacy, the father of the nation. He was called, like Mahatma Gandhi. Here in India, he is called the father of the nation. And then you can say he was also called the founding father of democracy. The founding father of democracy, because it was he who founded democracy actually in actual terms there. And he was the first elected president who was elected through the first representative democratic elections in his country. He fought for it and he got it, and that's why he was called the founding father of democracy in there. And then he was also cited alongside Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King. He was cited alongside them. And then as he was like Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King, they were also anti-racist, they were anti-colonial leaders. He was cited alongside them, anti-racist and anti-colonial leaders. He did not follow the policy of colonialism by Britishers at that time, like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King. And it was all about this. I found it very indispensable for you to know a bit about Nelson Mandela, and we are surely going to study this extract from his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. And he talks about oppression, he talks about the people who are oppressed, he talks about the change, he talks about the struggle, he talks about different freedom fighters, and he talks about victory, he talks about that ceremony, he talks about that day which was an oath-taking day for him, in which different leaders from all around the world were invited, and in which thousands and lakhs of people participated, and it was a very remarkable day in the history of South Africa, and we will surely do it in the next video. Now thanks for now, and surely you do watch the next video, in which we will discuss the other things from the text of this extract. Thank you.